Alright, let's get this show on the road. I'm still scratching my head. Had to take a quick break and I got caught up on HVACtalk.com and talking about capacitors, and somebody's talking about a voltage absorption system component. What the hell is that? Sounds like some crappy flat rate term. I don't know. Getting tired of this industry. I'm not big in the residential. It's just too much cutthroat stuff going on here, but voltage absorption system component. I've heard it all now. Oh well, let's get back to basics here. So on the simplicity boards we're talking about, I've already got it here. It's Simplicity PC icon. Most of you will not have it, but you're gonna need to download the software. To download the software, you're gonna need to Google Legacy Simplicity software. Should pull up all the downloads that are available that support these boards. Here you have your main software. This is what you'll need to download. Now it says Windows 7 and obviously some older operating systems. I have no problems running on Windows 8. I'm not a computer guru. I'm not sure, but you need to download the platform you're running on Windows 8. And again, any questions, they do have a PDF instruction manual. You'll also need to download the driver. This driver is what will allow your USB to communicate with the FreeNet Adapter that is plugged into the boards. Any questions on the driver? Looks like the part is considered obsolete itself, but I'll get into how to make your own. But any questions, if you do have it, they have a download, so you can get the instructions on that. The Pocket PC is old school stuff with Windows. That's useless. And then the transporter, some building automation systems and some building controls will have the transporter. That is where you'll have multiple simplicity boards or multiple rooftop units that will be daisy chained. They'll all run down to the transporter. The transporter is a device that ties that into the internet. And by downloading this software, you can connect remotely to the transporter and view, adjust, check alarms, reset equipment remotely. So you'll first want to download this and then your driver. Once you're downloaded, should have the icon. Now the icon, double click on it. It's going to bring up our Simplicity PC. Now remember, I am plugged into the 1A board on my wall here. Now when you bring up the PC software, it has a memory. It kind of remembers different places you've plugged in, and it will keep these. Now I'm going to get rid of these locations I've been to in the past. And you just basically right click, you delete them. And you're going to start out with a virgin screen. This is probably what you will have when you first use this and connect to your first PC and break your cherry. So the first thing you want to do is hit add. What add's going to do, we can name a location. It could be a location you're at. For example, we're in my garage. Depending if you're using the USB, the FreeNet adapter, which we usually will be, you just click on this, automatically detect which port you're using on your computer. If you're connecting with that transporter internet device, you can hit internet, put in the SID number of that device, and it'll connect to that remotely. Hit add. As you notice, my garage pops up. Now this could be any one of your customers that you're creating, so you can save it, and we can add the customer's name, location, contact information, etc. So we can personalize this location, and it will save it indefinitely. And every time you connect to another location, you can save that information. So once that's in, we just connect on my garage. We hit scan. As down low, it'll scan, and it will pull up anything that's connected to that device. We're going to expand it. And of course, this is a new board. It's not named. We'll go through that. You just click on it. And the first thing that comes up is these list of options. Now please be aware, we're on a real basic 1A board. It doesn't have any expansion boards, doesn't have 3 or 4 stages of cooling, doesn't have VAV, or the economizer. If it did have those, you would have many more extra options to choose from, especially if you jump into a Millennium board, the LITE board. You'll have a ton of options, including programming occupied times, unoccupied times. But right now, this is the basics of the basics, and it's easy to explain. And once you understand this, you can pretty much do all the boards. So on the summary screen, basically it tells us what type of device, revision of software, unit name. Obviously, we do not have one yet, but we can name it. If you're jumping into a board that's from the factory, they will have the serial number as the name, and you could change that to whatever you want. We'll get to that. If there's any active alarms, again, also will show us what our inputs and outputs are doing. Be aware that the input is what's coming from the thermostat, the output is what's leaving the board. This can be changed. We can adjust this for troubleshooting purposes. We can act like the thermostat, and by double clicking on it, we can turn it on or off. It's great for troubleshooting. Or, if you feel like it's a board issue and not a thermostat issue, we can actually avoid the thermostat input and actually see if it's a board issue. By double clicking on this, we could turn on the fan, bypass the thermostat input, and actually see if that relay is operating properly. We could do that for the condenser fans. We could do it for the heat. Now, the heat inputs, if you notice, they do not have a direct output because the heat input directly leaves the board and goes to the ignition control boards that are separate, or the ignition control board. The next is our status. In status, it basically gives us an idea what is going on with the board itself at this moment. Again, it'll give us active alarms. It'll tell us our compressors if they are on an anti-short cycle delay, which means that if there is a interruption or if there's a call for cooling too quickly, it will utilize this to prevent short cycling of the compressor. Now I'm going to quickly de-energize this board. I'm going to show you how this works and also how to utilize the auto refresh option. So I'm going to de-energize the board real quick here. Alright, so just de-energize the board. When the board is de-energized and re-energized, it's going to reset the anti-short cycling delays. Now we're just looking at the board as it was when we first plugged in. It's not refreshing, or we're not watching it live. So we need to come into the auto refresh while we're working on this, and you can choose it to update every so many seconds or in 1 minute, or use a define. We can even make it quicker or longer, but 5 seconds is plenty. You notice now it's going to be monitoring that board. In 5 seconds, in every 5 second intervals, we're going to see these counting down. Once it reaches 0, it will allow a call for cooling. Now remember, if you're troubleshooting, we really cannot change these here. We cannot zero these out. So in essence, we would have to sit here and wait for 250 seconds until these allow us to utilize or to troubleshoot the compressors. Now on the board itself, you have the test reset button. By pushing that button, just quickly pushing it for about 2 seconds, which I just did, it will reset those to 0. Boop, there you are. That way we can go ahead and we don't have to sit here and wait for 250 seconds every time we activate the compressors. It helps us as technicians diagnose things quicker. As we come down here, we have a fan on delay, fan off delay, and pretty much everything here is routine. Inputs tells us what the thermostat is doing, thermostat inputs, and it tells us also inputs from our safeties. Now on my board I have all the safeties jumpered or faked, but I can quickly remove a safety. On means we're good, off means it's bad. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this safety here. Oh, high pressure switch is bad or open. I'm going to go ahead and replace it. Boop. Yeah, we're back on. So remember, on means it's good, off means it's bad. Now it's different. For the low ambient closed, it's a low ambient switch is basically a single pole, single throw switch. It opens when we're above about 50 degrees, and it will close when we're below about 50 degrees. It's different than the regular safeties. So right now, off means it is open, means it is not sensing that it is in low ambient conditions. And again, the gas valve, pretty self-explanatory. We do not have a call for heat, so it is off. And we do not have a call for cool, so the economizer doesn't care at the moment, it is off. Outputs. The outputs here just basically explains what the board is giving off as an output. Compressor 1, 2 are off because we do not have a call for cool. Again, this is all very self-explanatory. This is the area that we need to work on. Setup options. If you notice in here, these are the actual values we can change. We can adjust in order to prioritize this piece of equipment for the building, or to make adjustments needed in order to get rid of some of these common nuisance issues with some of these York rooftop units. The fan on delay. Fan on delay basically means when there's a call for heat, the burners will ignite, and after, in this case, 30 seconds, the blower will energize. After a call for heat and the burners de-energize, the fan will run for 60 seconds in this case and then shut off. You're running into a lot of number 9 codes in the heating season due to the fact that the manual reset high limit switch, the one with the little red button we got to reset on a cold bam roof in the middle of the winter, has tripped. Many times why that has tripped is because the factor default, sometimes at 60 seconds or 90 seconds, is way too short. The fan doesn't have enough time to run to remove all that leftover heat off the heat exchangers, and when it shuts off, that residual heat builds up and trips our manual high limit switch. So I'm going to come in here, double click on this, and I like changing this to 180 seconds. That gives it ample time to run that blower to cool up the heat exchangers to prevent nuisance trips. Down at fan on delay. Fan on delay is if there's a call for cooling. How long is it going to wait till it turns on the fan? 0 is the factor default. That's pretty common. Don't need to play with it. Fan off delay. Well, how much residual cooling you want to get off those coils? 30 seconds. If that feels like it's a good enough time, you can leave it. Really, I don't have any issues with that. Minimum runtime for cooling. What the minimum runtime means is that when there's a call for Y1 or call for cooling, it will run those compressors for a minimum of 1 minute. So if the Y1 is energized and instantly taken off or de-energized, the compressor will still run for 1 minute. So don't get confused that when you jumper it out and you pull your jumpers off, it will still run for that 1 minute. Factor default is 3 minutes. I don't like 3 minutes. I guess good long run times is what we need to prevent premature wear and tear. But 3 minutes to me is too long, especially when I'm troubleshooting. So I'm going to change that back to 1. Update. Low ambient fan pre-run for cooling. What this means is if the senses is in low ambient and it gets a call for cooling, before it will even start up the compressors, it will run the blower for 60 seconds. The reason why it will do that is to bring warm return air or warmer return air through those coils in case those coils have cooled down to ambient temperature. This will give them more time to run before they freeze up because we're getting the metal of the coil warmed up with the return air temperature from the building below. Thus 60 seconds is usually ample time to do that if we're playing with low ambient conditions. Down here, fan off at heat start. What this means, and we got to clarify what off means and what on means. Off means yes. So get this in our heads, off means yes. If we switch to the on, it means no. So in the optional, do we want the fan off at heat start? Yes or no. If it's off, it means yes. If it's on, it means no. What the fan off at heat start means is that sometimes we come across buildings or residential where they flip that fan switch over to on and that fan runs continuously. What this option allows us to do, on or off, yes or no, is if before when there's a call for heat, it will shut the fan off. It will then wait the 30 seconds and then re-energize the fan based on this delay. If we want that to happen, we can change this to on, which means no. Okay, next option, all compressors off and free cool. So right now it means off, on. All this gets confusing. So do we want all the compressors off and free cooling? We want this off or on? This is where I get confused talking about it. I can do it in my head, but talking about it, I get confused. So all compressors are off and free cooling. If we have this off, that means that we are allowing the compressors to turn on if there's a call for Y2. If we turn this to on, what it's saying is that no matter if we have free cooling, we're not going to allow any mechanical cooling to back us up. It's pretty much an option we really don't want to screw with. I'd rather keep that off and take advantage of the fact that if I am free cooling and I get a Y2 call, then I am going to kick on mechanical to supplement the cooling. All compressors off in low ambient, basically the same thing. If all compressors are off in low ambient, that means in low ambient conditions, my compressors will not come on at all. What happens in low ambient situations, how York with the Simplicity board works this, is that it will run that blower for the 60 seconds. It will then energize the compressor, Y1 or Y2 as needed. It will run that compressor for 10 minutes, will shut it off for 5 minutes, and maintain that blower, and then run that compressor for 10 minutes and shut it off for 5 minutes until the cooling call is sufficed. The reason they do that is to prevent the evap coil from freezing up. We can go ahead and choose not to run the compressors at all, so in low ambient, they're off. Comfort ventilation, I have no clue why it's even an option on the 1A board. If you have the expansion slots where we're running VAV, the economizer board, we can energize the comfort ventilation enabled or turn it on or off. Right now, the comfort ventilation enabled, it's off. If we turn it on, it's going to try to use outside air on its own, energize heating and cooling as needed to try to keep supply or temperature band, and it gets very confusing. So I never really screw with these. Lead lag enabled. Right now it's not enabled, it's off. But if we want to enable it in order to even out the run hours on our compressors, if you have 2 compressors, I prefer to turn this on. And the other one that's usually left off, which I don't understand why, is C2 or compressor 2 will jump in for C1 if it's locked out. So if you have a locked out situation due to an open high pressure switch or loss of charge on C1, and you have a thermostat that's, you got a cheap company, it's only installed a single stage thermostat, and it never calls for Y2, and you have a Y1 that's locked out, and you never actually get a chance to go to stage 2, well, in this case, it'll say, hey, C1's locked out, or compressor 1's locked out, so in its place, I'm going to bring on compressor 2. I like that option. I like having that to cover my butt. There we are. We just set up this unit the way some people like it, and you don't have to do it this way. I'm just showing you how to do it and understand how it works. Device names. We can come in here. As you know, this is a new board. It doesn't have any names. You can name it. I can name it my garage unit number 1. Maybe I'll have 15 units on this roof. Well, this will be number 1. If this is a new board, you can quickly look at the rooftop unit and say, well, unit model number is Y060. See, Y060 is the model number of that unit that we just replaced this board on, and serial number, and and just update the serial number to help make this board unique to this rooftop unit. Air screen will bring up alarms. Currently there are no alarms. And run times. The run times basically tells how long compressor 1 has accumulated over its lifetime, as long as the board's been attached, and accumulate heat, etc. If we're replacing a board, it's sometimes nice and good manners in order to recover from the old board. Even if it's burned out, as long as you get 24 volts to it, you can still pull the information from the board. Sometimes it's nice of you to pull up the old accumulated run times and update this board with them. That way, if in the future, technicians can really see how many hours are on that compressor, even though the board has been changed. So I hope this kind of gives you an idea how this works. And then once done, you can either just X out. It's going to ask you want to save the changes. If you want to save them, you can create a file. You can save these changes. You can use that file in the future. You can go to another unit, open up, add this file to that unit. Right now I'm not going to save it, and that's basically it with Simplicity PC software. Now we're going to go into that FreeNet adapter, the cheaper one, and how to make it. So most of you are aware of DigiKey. I'm going to go there right now. DigiKey has this. Here's the DigiKey part numbers. Now there's two of them. They're both exactly the same. The only difference is one has about 6 feet of cable and the other one has 16 feet of cable. I prefer the 16 feet of cable. Why? When you're plugged in a rooftop unit, I like to crawl around as far as I can and get into a shady spot or a place that the sun's not glaring on my laptop screen. So 16 feet gets me pretty damn close to a nice comfortable spot to work. So you would order this from DigiKey. Once you have this, there's a small little write-up I did, and you can slow down the YouTube in order to read all this. But this kind of explains how this works. Here's the instruction manual for your adapter can be found. Here's a blown up of the wiring, and all the forms in Simplicity 1A can be found here, here, and here. So basically what you're doing is that here's a USB port. We're not screwing with that. But here's the port that we're working with. Remember, on those boards, you do not have to have that Molex plug. You have the screw-in, where you can screw in A, ground, and B. Well, plug this in your computer. With the downloaded driver, it will read this. And then here's your here's your black goes to the ground terminal. Your yellow will go to B, and your orange will go to A. Go ahead and cut these wires off, the green, brown, and red, and just use the yellow, orange, and black. Now you can dial right into a Simplicity board from your laptop. You don't need to spend $300, $400, $500 on a FreeNet adapter or spend hours on eBay trying to find one now they're obsolete. Any questions, feel free to email me or to throw a comment on the YouTube video. But again, this is how you would make your FreeNet adapter. Appreciate you guys. Any other questions? Let me know.